Race of the week is the Grade 1 $1 million Haskell Invitational from the Jersey Shore, Monmouth Park. Let's take a look at this 7-horse field, which features the Florida Derby winner and recent winner, King for a Day. Let's start at the rail. King for a Day, trained by Todd Pletcher, 2 for 2 in 2019, and picked up a big win over the likely post-time favorite and morning line favorite, Maximum Security, in his most recent start. Now, the key that day was King for a Day has used a tracking, pace-setting trip in both of his efforts this year, and then was able to kind of edge away. Now, I'm not sure really if King for a Day is a Grade 1 type of horse, and if he really wants a 1.125 long term. But I think this is the spot for him. I think he's doing good right now, and I really like his running style in this race. There really was no excuse for Maximum Security in the prep race for this. King for a Day kind of just wore him down, and I thought Maximum Security kind of shortened stride. Now, the difference this time is that King for a Day is kind of stuck on that rail, so that may work against him a little bit, but I think King for a Day has a shot. Joevia comes off a third-place finish in the Belmont Stakes, and in that race showed speed, showed tactical speed, led all the way around, and then was collared late by Sir Winston. 2 for 2 at Monmouth Park. Both of those were in the slop. Capable of a big effort here, and if he gets the right trip, and remember, heat is expected to be in the lower to mid-90s for this race. I think it could come into play if you get 2-3 horses kind of dueling on the front end. They may get a little leg weary late. So Joevia is definitely worth a shot at 10-1 morning line. Spun to Run, he's got a morning line of 15-1. He's kind of an outsider in this spot. I really can't make a case for him on class, form, or speed, which are some of the most powerful handicapping angles. I really don't see Spun to Run getting a good trip and tripping out into a win here. I think he's a long shot. I can't really make a case for Spun to Run to win the Haskell Stakes. Bethlehem Road, 20-1, another outsider, kind of entered, I think, as kind of the local horse and some filler material here. I think they went around and got a couple extra horses into the race. So Bethlehem Road, I'm kind of going to pass on him. I just don't think he can sit a good trip. I don't think 9 furlongs is his distance, and he's definitely not a Grade 1 horse. Now, Mucho Gusto ships in from California. Bob Baffert has won this race 8 times. His horses traditionally do well in this speedy race, as this kind of the track and the race style and kind of the date on the calendar plays to more forwardly placed horses. Mucho Gusto, I've never really thought of as a 9 furlong horse. Now, his effort in the Sunland Derby, he was on the inside that day of the speed, and there was a couple of horses that kind of really took it to him early. The pace of that race was fast, and it's set up to be kind of against Mucho Gusto's running style. I like his last race in the Affirmed. I like how he was able to sit off the pace and kind of make his mid-race move. I think he gets the same type of trip here. I think King for a Day could be sent. I think Mucho Gusto is going to be sent. Forwardly placed anyways, but I think he can rate a little bit more than Maximum Security and possibly King for a Day. So Mucho Gusto, the key for this Mucho Macho Man son is going to be to just kind of see how long he can rate, not make his move too soon. I like Joe Talamo in the irons in this spot. I think he's going to sit a really good trip, and I think you could make a case that Mucho Gusto can win the Haskell Invitational. Everfast, this horse has put together 2 efforts that might be the key to this race here. His Preakness Stakes, he was able to close late into fast fractions, and back in Gulfstream Park, he was able to close late as a long shot in the Fountain of Youth. And I think he can pick up the pieces here. This is kind of my stab in this race. I'm just not convinced a lot of these horses want to go 9 furlongs. I think he's one of the few horses that can relax, definitely. I think he got kind of too far behind in the Belmont Stakes, but if the pace really gets fast, or if these horses just get tired, or they just don't want to go 9 furlongs, which is usually not the case in the Haskell. Usually somebody runs on, but I'm going to take a kind of a stab here with Everfast. I think he can get the 9 furlong distance. I think the pace could heat up a little bit, and I'm just not sure the form on some of these horses. Maximum Security, this is one of those races where you got to be careful. His Florida Derby, that's his best race. But then when you really look at his best race, he had a slow pace that day. He was sent to the lead. He got by with slow fractions. and the track was front running. It was one of the most biased racetracks of the Gulfstream Park meet. So his best race was bias aided, and he was the lone speed. Then in the Kentucky Derby, that track, that race was actually a good race. Now, whether or not he disqualified anybody, that is to be debated on another platform. But I think Maximum Security ran the best race in the Kentucky Derby. I think his best race, though, was the Florida Derby, which he took advantage of the track and the pace and was able to make it look like a better horse than he really is. There was no excuse in his most recent start, the Pegasus Stakes. He was beaten on the square by King for a Day. I thought he noticeably shortened stride late in the race, and I didn't like the fact that he was actually starting to be ass going into the turn. So can Maximum Security win the race? Yes, he could. I think he's going to be on the lead. I think he has no chance from winning off the pace. I think he's the type of horse that can make a move. I'm just not sure he's going to be able to make that move from the outside. So I think he's going to use a little energy from that seventh post to take the lead early on. I think King for a Day and Mucho Gusto are going to be right behind him, latched onto his flank, which means he's going to get that pace pressing trip with horses to his outside. If they move too soon, it could fall apart, and Everfast might be able to take advantage and win this late. Joevia has a shot. Everfast is 10-1 morning line. The way you play a horse like this is put a few dollars in daily doubles, either coming into this race or coming out of this race. That's usually where you can get like 12 to 13-1 rather than a win ticket. Win place, I think, is a solid bet. If Maximum Security doesn't win, I'm not so sure he's going to run second. So if you're playing against Maximum Security, toss him out of the win and the place rolls, because I just think if he can't win this race fair and square on the front end as the supposedly best horse, I'm not so sure he's going to kind of suck up for second either. King for a Day, he can win this race. I think he'll be 3-1. His morning line is 5-2. I think Mucho Gusto is the second favorite on the tote board in this spot. I think 5-2 is fair odds on Mucho Gusto. If he's 5-2, I might take him as my backup bet to Everfast. Lots of ways to play this race. Don't forget, hit subscribe. The more subscribers, the more videos we can do. We're also going to be doing a preview of the CCCA Oaks and more races from Del Mar, where the turf meets the surf. But the Haskell Invitational, Maximum Security, the favorite. I'm taking a shot with Everfast, and I think King for a Day and Mucho Gusto are possibilities, but heat and pace are going to play a role in the Haskell Invitational. And I'm not sure any of these horses really want 10 furlongs, and I don't see any of them going on to run in the Travers Stakes later on this summer. This is a little bit more of a grade 2 type of race, and we'll see who comes out of it. This would be a key race for Maximum Security, but King for a Day could step into the spotlight, or even Mucho Gusto. Ring that bell for notifications. Who do you like in the Haskell? Leave a comment or share this video, as we have more Race of the Weeks coming up, leading you up to the Breeders' Cup 2019.